Pozdravljeni, lep pozdrav vsem skupaj in dobrodošli v sklopu, kjer se bomo posvečali hrani in to ravno po kosilu. Tako da upam, da je čim manj hrane ostalo zavržene, čim manj tiste, ki je bila vzeta in je ostala na krožnikih. Tema pa bo seveda širša, ne bo samo o tem, kako hrane ne zavržemo, ampak predvsem to, kako jo vključujemo v celoten krogotok te naše prehranske verige in kako tudi poskrbimo, da je čim manj tiste, ki gre v nič, se pravi tista, ki jo že zavržemo, kako iz nje naredimo rodovitno prst, če se tako izrazim. Sama diskusija bo zasnovana tako, da bomo imeli naše eminentne 4 govorce, ki bo vsak podal svojo iztočnico v začetku, ampak kar en za drugim, zato da bomo imeli potem res živahno debato naprej. Namreč tudi sam sklop je zasnovan tako, da se pomikamo od ene teme do druge v tem krogu in da na koncu dobimo nekako celo sliko, kaj pa je sploh na področju zapiranja tega krogotoka, tisto, kar je bistveno in tisto, kar se lahko naučimo, implementiramo ali kot fizične osebe, posamezniki v svojih lastnih gospodinjstvih ali pa na sistemski ravni. Tako da lepo pozdravljam naše 4 govorce, ki prihajajo iz 3 različnih dežel. Imamo Lindo, ki je iz Velike Britanije in ima odlične prakse iz združenja RAP. Welcome, Linda. Potem imamo Daliborja, ki prihaja iz Slovenije in je start-upovec in dokazuje, da tudi na področju inoviranja mladih podjetij so priložnosti, ki vodijo k krožnemu gospodarstvu. Dobrodošel, Dalibor. Potem imamo 2 gosta iz Italije in sicer je z nami Enzo, Zero Waste Europe, ki ima odličen primer, kako tudi veliko mesto lahko poskrbi za odpadno hrano in to je kar primer Milana, nam bližnjega, tako da se lahko identificiramo tudi s tem primerom. Potem imamo pa profesorja Klaudija, prav tako iz Italije, iz Bologne, ki nam bo pa zaupal skrivnosti, v katere pa sem jaz že manj posvečena, ker so zelo strokovne in vezane s tem, kako kompostirati na pravi način, da res dobimo tista hranila, ki jih potem lahko učinkovito uporabimo celo za gojenje grozdja in ustvarjanje odličnega vina. Tako da prosim najprej kar Lindo, če se nam pridruži in predstavi svoje primere. Linda, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you and good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be with you today at your conference. I'm really going to focus my presentation on food waste prevention. I have a slide up here that tells you a little bit about RAP, the organisation I work for in the UK, but I don't want to use up too much of my 10 minutes telling you about RAP. I want to tell you about some of the things that we have been doing. So what I want to give you is just a quick appreciation of how much food waste we produce in the UK and hence why it's such a challenge and why we need to do something about the better management of that waste stream. And then, as I say, really focus on some of the work that we've been doing to prevent food waste. So first of all, this is how much food and drink waste we produce in the UK, around about 15 million tonnes in total throughout the whole supply chain. So that's from production, through retail, through manufacturing, through hospitality and households. But significantly, of that 15 million tonnes, around 7 million tonnes is actually produced by households and arises in the household waste stream. As I said, a lot of our work in the UK is dealing with trying to close the loop on food waste. So we're talking about preventing it. We're doing work on collections, and we're doing work on recycling that food waste, either through anaerobic digestion or in vessel composting. So we are taking a closed loop approach to the management of the waste stream. But really focusing on our work on consumer food waste prevention. We've done that under a broad-ranging campaign that we started back in 2007 that we call Love Food, Hate Waste. But what we found is over the last 7-8 years, as we've been managing the campaign, the sorts of strategies, the sorts of approaches, the kind of communication techniques that we use have evolved. But what has been really important to our work and to understanding issues around food waste why is it generated in the first place, etc., has been a very, very strong evidence base. So we've done research into how much food is wasted, the types of food that are wasted, what are householders' attitudes, motivations, and behaviours around food waste. We've looked at things to do with the packaging of food waste and the labelling of products by producers and by retailers. And then we've tried and tested a whole range of materials and messages for consumers. So we have got a lot of evidence, and a lot of our reports are on our website. Unfortunately, most are just in English, but they are all available. And one of the big things that we realized early on that we needed to find out is what motivates people to reduce food waste. Quite a new concept for people to think about why should they reduce the amount of food waste. A bit of a lack of understanding. If you ask most people, do you waste food? They tend to say, no, we don't waste food in our household. No, we don't. So it was interesting in that on this slide, it shows you what the motivations were for people to reduce food waste. And the key thing that most people could relate to was the fact that they could save money by not wasting food. In the UK, we estimate that a typical household with a family, some children, waste around about 85 euros worth of food every month. So there's a very strong financial message for people about why they shouldn't waste food waste. But there was other reasons as well. Food shortages elsewhere, these sorts of things were also important to people, but it was the financial message and what it meant to individual households that really struck home. We also went in and tried to understand, well, were there particular types of waste that people were wasting more of? And I'm afraid vegetables and salads and bakery-type products, bread. So we understood what was in the food waste stream. And we also tried to understand, well, why were people wasting food? So some people were buying too much, and they're not using it in time. Other people were cooking too much, and then not eating it all. So there's a range of reasons why people were wasting food. So it was important to understand that. So we came up with our sort of food waste prevention loop, really. And on that diagram, it was all the sorts of things that we felt that people needed in terms of information, advice, in some circumstances, helping them to improve their skills that would help them to reduce food waste. So planning ahead. So when you go to shopping, when you go to the market or the supermarket, make a list, think about what you need to buy. And then once you've bought your food, store it correctly in the home. So some people were storing things in the fridge that shouldn't be stored in the fridge, or they were storing things in the fridge but not properly wrapped, these sorts of things. Cooking the right amount. Again, most people, particularly when they're entertaining, they don't want people to go hungry or not produce enough food. So many times people were cooking too much food and then throwing out what they didn't eat at the meal. And then there's things about, actually, if you do have leftovers after a meal, you can eat them. You can do things with leftovers. So giving people ideas about what they can do with their leftovers. And then, absolutely, what you can't eat, then recycle it, put it in your food waste collection. So quite a joined-up approach. And our campaign has done two things. We, as WRAP, through the Love Food Hate Waste campaign, do speak directly to consumers. We have a website that consumers can go to for information. And we do lots of stuff on social media. But most importantly, we work through partners, because our partners in local government, our partners in retailers, our partners in the community, in many cases, are much better placed to pass on the messages to householders and to provide that local information, knowledge, advice to householders. So we do a lot of work through our partners. And this is just an example. Tesco's. Maybe some of you heard of Tesco's, one of the big supermarkets in England. They are now producing information and labelling on their products to help people think about how they package their food when it gets home. Asda, another of our big supermarket chains, again, is communicating messages around food waste and reducing food waste to their customers. And I put this one up especially for Enzo, because one of the things that we do is in the UK, we're not very good at knowing how much spaghetti to cook. So one of the gadgets, one of the tools we make available to people through community groups is a spaghetti measurer. So people cook an appropriate amount of spaghetti for the number of people that they're that they're cooking for. So little things like that help people control proportions, cook the right size of portions. And last year, we launched an initiative working with the 10 largest cities in the UK, which we call the 10 Cities Love Food, Hate Waste initiative. And that means working really closely with the local government in these cities, the city authorities, and working with a number of organisations, so our retailers, as I mentioned, and other community groups. And we have a number of core activities that we've been doing in these cities. So we've been doing what we call cascade training, so getting key local opinion formers, key people in organisations and in businesses to help first of all, get trained up on some of the Love Food techniques and messages, and then cascade them through their organisation, these messages. We've got a Champions Love Food Hate Waste Champions network, so once people have been through the cascade training, they can go out and spread the message through their communities. We've got a tool online that helps people at home understand what food they're wasting and what they can do about reducing the amount of food they waste. And we've even gone into helping people with cookery classes and kitchen skills programs, because sometimes in this day of sort of fast food and ready prepared meals, and we are in the UK are a very high consumer of pre-prepared meals, people have lost some of the basic cookery and kitchen skills. So our program is all encompassing. And really, just to finish off, we have made good progress. We started this initiative back in 2007, and over that time period, we have reduced the amount of food waste that we produce in the UK by just over 1 million tonnes. But as I say, we've still got 7 million tonnes of the stuff, so we've got quite a long way to go in terms of reducing it further. But I hope I've given you just a little flavour today of the sorts of things that we've been doing to kind of tackle the prevention part of the hierarchy.
Linda, thank you very much. It was so inspiring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was I okay for my time?
No.
Our website.
So I have changed my mind. We cannot wait. I guess that we have to ask questions now, because you opened so many interesting issues. So is there anyone already ready to ask Linda something? Je kdo že pripravljen kaj vprašati ali prebijemo let drugače? Mislim, da je dala ogromno istočnic za razmislek. Prosim.
Hello, Diana from Croatia, environmental organization Žmergo. So we have this huge 3-year project, DEAR project, on topic of food and how to reduce waste, and starting school gardens with children, teaching them about the value of food and how to buy local food, organic food. So I was wondering, do you have any kind of program or any kind of suggestion how to work with schools, maybe?
Yes, we do have some information. We have looked at the whole issue of how much waste is produced in schools, and we have got some material. So afterwards, I can point you to the information that we have available. But yes, I think the point you make as well is that a lot of the messages around food link into other issues. So they link into valuing food in the first place. They link into better diets, more healthy living. So a lot of messages can relate to food waste and food waste reduction.
Še kdo, kako vprašanje? And I have a question, because you explained the campaign you made, and you mentioned that you used a lot of social media, but that the word of mouth is actually the thing that changes things, and all those partners that you have involved. So what would be your suggestion when preparing the campaigns nowadays, because we are overloaded with all different messages and everything. So how did you succeed? Because you definitely did.
Well, what we started off was being clear about most people can only take in so much information at one time. So we tried to keep the message simple, and when we were talking to people about food waste prevention, we just focused it on food waste prevention. And the key thing is getting across the message is, first of all, making sure people have an appreciation that they do actually waste food. And that's the first challenge, because as I said, most people say, oh, no, we don't waste food in our household. No. But everybody wastes food to some extent. So the first thing is getting them to actually recognize that they do waste food. And then the next thing is to give them some advice, tips, tools, simple things about what they can do. And as I said, actually, that whole cycle of loop is quite a lot for people to take in. So just start with small messages and small things, and then build it up.
Thank you. Še kdo, ki je vprašal? Ja?
Yes, hello, Vesna, University of Ljubljana, and also a startup company dealing with aquaponics food production. I was just wondering, I will connect to Ladea's question as well. So within this word of mouth and all this propaganda you were using, did you get involved with Jamie Oliver as well? Because he's quite well known in food okay.
Yeah, that's a good point, because actually some of our messages, we have used what we call our celebrity chefs in the UK, and Jamie Oliver is very good. He has done a TV program recently, and my colleague who runs the Love Food Hate Waste campaign, she was interviewed as part of his program. So he is a good ambassador. And we have another celebrity chef, Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, and he's just done a TV program. Actually, it was Monday night. I missed it because I was here, and he's done a TV program around the amount of food that we waste. So yeah, ambassadors like that are really important, because what we find is that often on such matters, and I think other people have similar experience that can relate to recycling as well. People like to get messages from other people, from their peers, from people they respect, role models, yeah, and they don't necessarily like to think that the message is coming from government.
Yeah, and another question regarding retailers, because you mentioned you managed really to connect them together, and they were very supportive in a sense.
Yeah.
So it's hard to convince them, because they have a lot of excuses why not to do something, so that the sales will drop down or anything like that. So how did you approach them?
Well, our work with retailers is part of a wider initiative that we manage within the UK, working with retailers. But the thing that we've found with retailers is that you have to allow them some flexibility, because Tesco's doesn't want to be saying exactly the same thing as Asda or Sainsbury's or our other big supermarket chains. So what we've agreed with them is that they take the messages from the campaign, but they may present it in a slightly different way that suits their customer base, and it suits their corporate brand, etc. So we have to, when working with retailers, allow them a little bit of flexibility. So as long as Asda and Sainsbury's and Tesco's are all giving the same general message to consumers, if they package it up in a slightly different way, then we're okay with
but
we're
were
okay
they
with
worried,
that.
yes, that their sales will drop, because if you are more aware, maybe you would like to add something.
No, actually, according to my experience, most of the programs for retailers are related to what are the discards, and actually you're making them save their money, because otherwise they would have to dispose of it. And therefore, even though they can give it free of charge, they save money. So that's the best way, the access point for the retailers to be included in the program.
The other thing, particularly in the UK, I don't know if it's the same here, but some of our supermarket chains, they do this buy one, get one free offer. We call it bog off, buy one, get one free. And they were getting a lot of criticism for that initiative, because it was encouraging people just to buy stuff, get one free, but then half the time they may not eat that extra melon or that extra bag of apples. They would go in the bin. So they have changed their approach slightly, such that they now talk about 2 for 1, but that 2 for 1 offer relates to a range of products. So people might be able to buy a melon and a bag of apples for the price of one item, rather than 2 bags of apples and then they only eat one. So they have changed their approach slightly in that respect, which has been good.
Yeah, thank you very much, both of you, because at the end of the day, we all have to be winners and want to be winners. So each stakeholder should see what is in it for me. Therefore, I ask them. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll have some more questions. And now we will move to Dalibor. And he will present a solution that is actually jumping directly into the gap between the retailers and those who have dead stocks.
That's correct. No, jaz bom danes za spremembo v angleščini prezentiral, to, da sem pretekle konference so v angleščini. Tako da pozdravljeni, moje ime je Dalibor Matejevič in sem ustanovitelj ter direktor podjetja Smart Futuristic. Kdo pravzaprav je Smart Futuristic? Smart Futuristic je nastal z namenom reševati vsakodnevne probleme, ki nastajajo tako posledice na okolju kot na družbi. In skupaj s partnerji si prizadevamo, da za tehnološkim pristopom skušamo upravljati te vire bolj pametno, bolj trajnostno in tudi veliko bolj učinkovito. Zdaj, velikokrat ste že slišali, da danes tudi izraženo, da 1/3 vse producirane oziroma proizvedene hrane gre praktično uničenje. To je problem, ki je visok oziroma gromozanski problem, ki se ga praktično ne moremo predstavljati, je 1,3 milijarde ton, praktično gre vsako leto uničenje, globalno. To je 1,5 trilijonov, z stejem govorim, ne? To si ne moremo predstavljati, kak je to velik problem. Mi smo Smart Futuristic je podjetje, ki je osredotočeno v sektor proizvodnje, manufacturing. In tukaj je ta problem 600 milijonov ton hrane vsako letno, ki gre uničene. Če pretvorimo to v številke, to je 312 milijard evrov izgube vsako leto in to vsako leto tudi narašča. Vkolikor bi z našo tehnologijo in drugimi produkti, ki bodo v sklopu Smart Futuristic podjetja, če bi privarčevali 10% v tej industriji, privarčevali 60 milijonov ton hrane. In če to bolj razumno nekako pretvorimo v nekaj bolj opremenljivega, lahko s tem prihrankom produciramo 117 milijonov obrokov. To lahko nahranimo celotno Slovenijo za naslednja 2 meseca. Smart Futuristic ima vizijo, da z razvojem tehnoloških produktov, ki temeljijo na digitalnem delu, skušamo preventivno ukrepati, da hrana ne gre v smeti, ampak se uporabi bolj v neke druge namene. Trenutno pomagamo proizvajalcem živil, distributerjem kot tudi trgovcem. Na način specializirani smo v nišo izvržkov oziroma prekoračenih rezerv v zalogi hrane z fokusiranjem v kritične roke uporabnosti teh živil. Če se osredotočimo na Food Factories, trenutno imajo limitirano oziroma njihova hitrost je omejena, tudi kapaciteta omejena, določeni imajo preveliko kapaciteto, kar pomeni, da ne more zadostiti oziroma je tudi preveliko proizvodno za demand, ki je na drugi strani. Forecasting, ne morejo nikakor načrtovati oziroma predvideti, kakšno količino bo na drugi strani odjemalec, kot si je retail, vzel. Nikakor in zaradi tega morajo imeti rezervne zaloge. Vkolikor nimajo teh rezervnih zalog in odjemalci želijo naročiti pri proizvajalcu določeno robo, plačajo penale. In rezervna zaloga nastane potem, mrtva zaloga temu pravimo, oziroma potem višek te zaloge, ki potem skušajo sami nekako spromovirati, skušajo preko različne akcije, ampak stroškovno, tudi investicijsko s časom nikakor ne gre mimo. Saj vsa podjetja preračunavajo v številkah in konec meseca razumejo to, da raje vržejo oziroma uničijo to hrano, kot pa z svojimi nekako skušajo to odpraviti. In pa size, se pravi, da je network oziroma mreža trenutnih v podjetju osredotočena na primarno svežo produkcijo v sektorju A kot na sektor B, ki je že praktično v kritičnem stanju za časovnim rokom. Tako nekako, se pravi podjetja, primer bom dal recimo špagetov. Vkolikor imajo špageta 1 leto rok uporabe, takoj po 30% tega roka uporabe noben retail tega ne bo kupil, oziroma noben večji odjemalec, ker je kritičen rok tako kritičen zaradi retaila, da se določeni ne odločijo, določeni sprejmejo, ampak pogojno, kar potem postane tudi ta produkt še bolj kritičen. Tukaj nastopimo mi. Mi prepoznamo preko warehouse management sistema te podatke v real-time časovnici in preko big date, preko algoritmov to skušamo čim bolj procesirati v digitalno inovativno tehnologijo, ki prepozna in povezuje določene sektorje, določene iniciative na drugi strani. Tukaj nastopimo mi in skušamo v vsakem časovnem roku pred iztekom tega produkta, kot tudi po izteku tega produkta, najti končnega odjemalca. Najti nekoga, ki bo to odkupil in bo lahko procesiral v neke druge obroke, kot so recimo restauracije, hoteli, catering servisi, industrijske kuhne, šole, vrtci, bolnišnice in temu podobni. In tudi v predzadnji točki nevladne organizacije. Spravi, kot je predhodnica omenila, nekako podjetje profitirajo celo, da če te produkte dajo brezplačno, ker je strošek teh produktov, koliko gre uničene, dvakratnik proizvedene cene. In tukaj mi skušamo ravnati z njim, da jim ustvarimo profit vsekakor, ker to je nekako posledica tega, kar želijo, poleg tega pa tudi, da so družbeno odgovorni, da skušamo vse te korak za korakom iniciative podati te informacije in tudi nahraniti ob koncu ljudi. Ne? Tako nekako je to naša shema, kako deluje orodje. Mi smo podjetje, ki je ekspert na tehnologiji. Mi nismo prodajalci, mi nismo odjemalci, nismo eksperti na tem. Mi smo eksperti na tem, da zgradimo tehnologijo, ki bo njim nekako optimizirala poslovanje, skušala odprodati oziroma dati potem najti nekoga na drugi strani. In tukaj vključujemo proizvajalce, veletrgovce, tiste na drugi strani podjetja in pa tudi druge iniciative, ki bodo odkupili, ker pa razpolagamo tudi z informacijami, lahko nudimo tudi zelo ugoden transportni servis, ker vemo, da 40% tovornjakov, logistov se vrača na izhodiščno točko praznih. Mi z informacijami, kakor primer, mogoče prepoznate Skyscanner, fila prazna mesta v letalu, ne? Mi oziroma z informacijami, ki jih razpršimo po partnerskih mestih, portalih, dobimo povratno informacijo nazaj in vidimo, v katerem mestu oziroma kateri je ta najbližji logist, kateremu lahko zafilamo tovornjak in to zalogo vzporedno s potoma pripelje do točke B, ne? Kar pomeni, dobijo ugodnejši produkt in tudi dobijo ugodnejši servis oziroma logisto. Vključujemo tudi NGO oziroma nevladne organizacije, to so recimo, tvorimo en konzorcij skupno, v tej nameni, da to vizijo ustvarimo, to vizijo tudi dosežemo, kot tudi na koncu recycling podjetja oziroma predelovalna podjetja, ki lahko potem po pretečenem roku teh produktov ustvarijo nov polizdelek. Primer, olje lahko gre v svečo, olje lahko gre v milo in druge kategorije produktov, ki jih lahko pretvorijo nek polizdelek končni. Z namenom samo, da ni izvrškov. Kakšen impact lahko ustvarimo s tehnologijo? Glede na to, da je tehnologija usmerjena v time compression tool, kar pomeni, da informacije potekajo zelo hitro po supply chainu, želimo s tem, ker je kritičen čas produktov, najti v vsakem časovnem obdobju tudi nekoga odjemalca. In tukaj skušamo se pravi zmanjšati odpadek, s tem tudi emisije v zrak, ustanoviti v našem krožnem sistemu in v našem krožni shemi nova podjetja, zelena podjetja in ustvarjanje novih delovnih mest zaradi drugačnega pogleda in drugačnega sistema vodenja. Skušamo spodbujati, ker ni naša platforma oziroma orodje namenjeno le profitiranju in tudi se pravi ustvarjanju nekih obrokov in pa zadoščanju nekih naročil, a želimo tudi retailerje, vse tiste, ki imajo v svoji lasti hrano, ozaveščati. Kaj so s tem naredili, koliko emisij so prihranili. To počnemo z Oxford University, tako da tukaj se nekako naslanjamo na strokovnjake, ki so na tem področju, ki nam lahko svetujejo, ki nam lahko pomagajo, ki nam lahko dajo podporo, da nismo le tehnologija, ampak tudi nekako delujemo v smeri znanja, delujemo v smeri ozaveščanja teh proizvodov, da spremenijo svoje mentalno razmišljanje. In pa tudi, se pravi, socialno izključeno množico, ker vemo, da do 2050 statistika, da se bo populacija povečala, se pravi, da bo 9 milijard populacije svetovno, kar pomeni, da se bo trenutna proizvodnja mogla povečati za 2-kratnik, če bomo mi želeli to populacijo nahraniti. In to bomo nekako mogli spremeniti v supply chain, določene korake z novim določenimi pristopi in mislim, da je čas za digitalizacijo, informatizacijo in sodelovanje. Mi delamo v podjetju na področju sodelovanja partnerjev in trenutno pokrivamo 3 različne kontinente. Imamo v Sloveniji 10 proizvajalcev živil in pokrivamo 10 držav. Ker je podjetje mlado in je ustanovljeno šele za 1. aprilom to leto, imamo v svoji operativi, v svojih informacijah 3,5 milijonov produktov, v vrednosti 1,5 milijonov. To je za eno mlado podjetje zelo tak ambiciozen korak in zelo velik, kar počnemo. Tako da tukaj skušamo, osvojili smo nekaj nagrad, kar je dokaz in smo na njih ponosni in je dokaz to, da gremo v pravo smer, da so prepoznali to nek tak model, ki lahko spremeni trajnostno, gospodarsko in pa tudi družben pogled in s tem tudi nadaljujemo. Trenutni product roadmap, kot vsak startupovec, imamo vsi svoje neke marketinške, produktne plane in v naslednjem letu želimo fizično vključujočo trgovino ustanoviti skupaj s partnerji, kot je BTC, kot je IBM, kot je E3 skupnost v Ljubljani, kjer bo vključevala socialno šibke v trgovino, kjer bo lahko dobili produkte cenej, je neke vrste socialna trgovina oziroma z inovativnejšim pristopom bolj družbeno naravnana in pa potem tudi, kot sem opazil pri gospe Lindi, tudi mobilno aplikacijo, ki bomo optimizirali življenja družinskih članov doma, lahko nekako prispevali k temu, da bo bolj pametno nakupovali, bolj pametno izrabljali svoja živila in pa potem tudi naročili to, da si bodo ti lahko tudi omogočili cenejšo nabavo produktov direktno iz proizvajalcev. Tako da vsak startupovec želim delovati disruptive in nekoga pač izločiti iz verige. Tako da evo, pri tem zaključujem, tako da najlepša hvala.
Hvala, Dalibor. Kadar govorimo o nekih rešitvah, nekih appih, se nam zdi, da so to neke take igračke enostavne, ne? Tukaj pa zelo veliko deležnikov vključenih in to takih resnih playerjev in resne številke velike. A lahko nam poveš mogoče kak konkreten primer, recimo iz Slovenije, ne, kjer ste že uspeli to kolo pognati in uresničiti vašo?
Ja, vsekakor. Evo, recimo, ne bi izpostavljal glih, kdo so naši partnerji, ker B2B sistem oziroma trg je zapleten, je zakompliciran in je zelo težak. Posebno, ne vem, če ste slišali že v preteklosti, da je nek proizvajalec uničil recimo X hrane. Veliko se je slišali iz drugih industrij, tako da tukaj so informacije prikrite. In ti kot startup, ko nastopaš na tej sceni, skušaš odkriti, kje je sploh problem, koliko je velik problem. Nasplošno šele v Sloveniji, ki je mentalno še malo zadaj in nasproti z drugimi državami, ampak zaradi tega moraš vzpostaviti zaupanje. Moraš vzpostaviti partnerje. Jaz ne gledam na svoje kliente kot naročnike, ampak kot partnerje. Mi skušamo njim pomagati, skušamo jim asistirati, da to hrano dajo, prodajo, kakorkoli. In na primer, evo, zdaj imamo iz ene druge države naročenih 40 tovornjakov čokolade. To bomo zaprli v tem tednu. Tukaj v Sloveniji imamo trenutno več, kot recimo, da je te zaloge, ki gre uničenje približno trenutni schemi 30 tovornjakov na mesec. To so različne, to so od pašte do moke, do sladkorja in tako naprej in tako naprej. Tako da ne bi pa izpostavljal glih, kdo so ti partnerji, ker je tudi naša platforma zaprta, zaupanja vredna in pa varovana, da ne bi kdo sistema izkoristil.
Tako da ne bi prišlo do zlorabe in da bi vstopali nepovabljeni. To, kar si pa omenil še na koncu, mogoče za gospodinjstva, ne, kako nam bo ta aplikacija pomagala, mogoče to, kar si se navezal tudi na Lindo, a bomo mi lahko bolje nakupovali, bolje sestavljali jedilnike, kaj vse boste omogočili z vašo rešitvijo?
Skušali bomo sestaviti iz različnih sklopov to aplikacijo. Prvo bo to, da ti bo generirala recepte iz teh produktov, ki so ostali v tvojem hladilniku. To mislim, da določene sheme že obstajajo, to se lahko normalno povežem in ne želimo graditi nekaj novega, če že obstaja na trgu. Želimo optimizirati to, da potem v trgovini pametneje kupujemo, da vemo, da smo ozaveščeni, kako postavljati produkte v sam hladilnik, da s tem, recimo, ker vemo, da je čas ključen tudi v našem življenjskem ciklu, ne, skušamo delovati disruptiv, da ti bo pa mogoče sosed skuhal kosilo, ne, glede na to, kaj ti pa ostane v hladilniku, glede na to, da...
Skupaj se stavtali.
Ja, tako da bomo mogoče delovali v tej smeri, kot razmišljajo zdaj veliki playerji, kot je Uber, kot je Zipcar, kot je to, če obstaja neke kapacitete, ne vem, penzionisti, ki bi pa lahko mogoče te produkte skuhali in naredili obroke.
Ja, super, spet ponovno Vesna. Ja, hvala za to predstavitev, zelo zanimiva. Mene zanima zdaj za te household, bo to brezplačna aplikacija, oziroma kako pa je to razdeljeno? Aha.
Brezplačno.
Za te, ki so pa v živilski industriji, pa ne, tukaj je zaprt sistem.
Tako, to je plačljiv sistem.
Ok, logično, ok, ja. Hvala.
Kje mora biti tudi revenue stream, ne, da ne boste...
Mi nismo dobrodelna organizacija.
Še kako vprašanje, tam od zadnji, če nisi noben.
Ja, lep pozdrav od Marcodorič. Jaz sem že rahlo amortiziran, pa zaradi tega imam mogoče tudi nekaj več spomina, oziroma daljši čas. Jaz se spomnim približno pred 10 leti, ko je naš tedanji predsednik vlade oznanil približek, koliko kruha zapade v kontejnere. Naši mediji, mislim, da 14 dni, 3 tedne, so ga tako arogantno napadali za to izjavo, tako da takrat sem ugotovil, da smo še daleč od informacije, znanja, predvsem pa od zavesti in zavedanja. Hvala.
Ja, tudi jaz sem to slišal, informacijo glede kruha, glede na to, da so te kategorije na najbolj prioritizirani lestvici, kar se tiče odpadkov, tudi zelenjava, kruh, meso, mlečni izdelki in tako naprej. Se tudi jaz spomnim statistike, ki mi en gospod partner pravi, da je recimo dnevno iz Slovenije šlo na odpadek 30 tovornjakov kruha, ne. Tako da to so te informacije, ki so bile pred 5 leti, jaz verjamem, da se še dogajajo. Ampak skušamo recimo že popraviti z določenimi iniciativami, ki ta kruh recimo pred 24-urnim iztekom vzamejo iz trgovin in naredijo obroke, kakor je strehca, mislim, da je Zavod pod strehco in druge iniciative. To so recimo primeri, ki je pa čas še bolj kritičen. In tukaj bi želeli z digitalno informatizacijo zagotoviti te informacije iniciativami, da pridejo čim prej vzeti to hrano, da čim prej skušajo tudi mogoče generacijo določenih idej, kaj lahko to storijo s to hrano. Za primer iz Belgije, ne, kruh uporabljajo za varjenje piva. Kruh je glavna sestavina, ne, in to odlično počnejo. Imamo določene prakse, ki v tujini, ki to počnejo nekako zelo uspešno. In zakaj ne bi to nekako copy-pastali in dodali na naše trge, na naš market? Danes je bilo tudi odlično govorcev iz tujine in obstajajo prakse, obstajajo načela, obstajajo dokumentacije, samo preslikati treba v naše okolje in to uporabiti.
Še kako vprašanje? Ja?
Actually, I have a question for Linda and also for Dalibor. You were talking about the criteria that the retail puts on the producers, and you were cooperating with the retailers. It's any possibility that maybe the retailers also like lower the criteria so the producers have more time to sell the products, or they were like open just to make the campaign, or they were open also to change maybe the conditions for the producers?
Yes, one of the other things that we have looked at is all the issue of labelling products, and we've sort of worked also with the Food Standards Agency in the UK to rationalise some of the labelling on products, because people were getting very confused because we have sell by, use by, best before. I was just checking here what we've all got. Display until. So we have done some work to simplify that labelling for people and then communicate that to consumers. And the other area where we have done work is around packaging, because packaging gets a lot of criticism because people think, oh, all this packaging, it gives us more waste to deal with. But good packaging can extend product lifetimes. So we have done also some quite innovative work with packaging designers to design packaging that allows products to last longer. And packaging that makes it easier for when people get products home, that they can still store the product in the packaging without having to rip all the packaging off. You see some things now like cheese that comes in packaging that's maybe got a little zip fastener, so you can open it, take the cheese out, use it, put it back in, and the packaging has an added benefit and an added use. So we've done quite a lot of work around extending product life. Yeah.
Thank you both. And now we are moving to Milan. And so are you ready to share your story?
Dobro jutro. Simple things first. I know you know that Slovenian is the language of the future, right? Yeah. But unfortunately, we are still living in the present. So let me speak the language of the past, Linda, today. Okay, no, I'm not here to represent Milan, neither Italy. I'm here to represent Zero Waste Europe, but I will be reporting in the general framework of these events about what's going on separate collection of the organics, and above all, with a focus on separate collection in the densely populated areas. Let me stress, I know it will not be a difficult job for me, a difficult task, because the largest city in Slovenia is already sorting out food waste from 100% of the population. And let me praise Slovenia for that, because it's one of the leading situations in this respect. However, as I told you, I'm here to represent Zero Waste Europe, so some input concerning zero waste, because some of you already heard of zero waste, but it's worth noticing the cross implications, zero waste and circular economy. Zero waste is nothing less, nothing more than a set of instruments and operational programs in order to make circular economy real with a bottom-up approach. We are basically a Zero Waste Europe. We are a network of civil society, campaigners, and local authorities. There is a national affiliate here in Slovenia, which is Ecolog Brezmeja. They are running Zero Waste Slovenia, and they were also fundamental in order to convince the first municipalities, Vrnica, Ljubljana, and other municipalities to adopt a zero waste program. How many do know that the circular economy package, which was proposed in July 2014, was subtitled a zero waste program for Europe? So there's no need to convince anybody at the highest level in the European Commission. But we know it's important to define what zero waste is. This is why, as the Zero Waste International Alliance, in whose board I sit, we keep a codified zero waste hierarchy, zero waste strategy of best and highest use. When it comes to organics, we say, feed the humans as long as your food waste is still suitable for human consumption, then feed the animals, then feed the soils. Never feed the landfills and the incinerators, of course. And we have got some ongoing recognition and certification programs, but that would be much too detailed. The metrics for zero waste and circular economy we adopt wherever we establish the local zero waste programs is not the separate collection rates, because we are working concurrently on waste reduction upfront, and therefore, if only separate collection matters, there would be no effort on home composting because it would take food waste away from the recycling rate. Or there would be no effort on water from the tap because it takes glass or plastics away from the separate collection rates. But since we are working concurrently on waste reduction and separate collection, the matrix we adopt is the minimized amount of residual waste in kilograms per inhabitant and year. When Ljubljana adopted the zero waste program, it established a mid-term target to get down to 60 kilograms per inhabitant and year in a few years time window. For the moment, Ljubljana is around 100 kilograms per inhabitant and year. This is the performance of the Contarina district, which is in the parallel track. since this is a diamond, I want to share it with you, you know. And this is just across the border in northeastern Italy. It covers a population of 550,000 people, 50 municipalities, including the province capital, Treviso, and they're already around 50 kilograms per inhabitant in year with an intended target by 2023 of 10 kilograms per inhabitant in year. But organics, what is the basic work program for circular economy through zero waste local programs? Curbside collection at the doorstep because it gives responsibility to the single household, the waste prevention practices, home composting, water from the tap, cloth nappies instead of throwaway nappies, and so on and so forth. Pay-as-you-throw systems in order to provide for incentives for better separation of your waste. And then, since we zero wasters, we are always happy but never satisfied. When we get to 70%, we celebrate just one night. And then the next day, we plan how to get to 80%. Very funny people. And then when we get to 80%, we should get to 85 or 87 and something like that. Always happy and never satisfied. So we check the composition of residual waste to see what's inside, and in order to redesign the system, both on the side of separate collection and on the side of industrial responsibility to provide for better durability, reusability, and recyclability of goods and materials. And most important, curbside collection should be included in the organics. And this is where the key role of organics steps in the system. It's a key role from the quantitative standpoint. Still, the organics are the highest percentage in our municipal solid waste across Europe, let alone in Southern Europe and Central Eastern Europe. In some rural districts, we find even more than 50% organics. So in order to get to consistent recycling rates, we have to sort out the organics. But also, it's a qualitative and operational importance of food waste. Because once we take the organics out, provided we are effective in capturing the organics, we can sharply reduce the collection frequency for residual waste. And the benefit is twofold. First of all, we save money. So separate collection schemes are not deemed to cost more than mixed garbage collection. Above all, once you consider the savings on disposal. But above all, you exert a further driving effect for other recyclables. If you collect less frequently residual waste, there will be more separation of paper, glass, plastics, metals, and whatever. So organics are important. And in order to get there, you have to minimize food waste and residual waste. This is the evidence, the metrics we use, the most important way to measure efficacy of food waste separate collection programs is to assess how much is the percentage of food waste inside residual waste. And with a performing system for separate collection of food waste, we may go lower than 10% of organics in residual waste. But consider, in some zero waste communities, which are already between 85 and 90%, sometimes we've even got a few municipalities above 90% separate collection. So less than 10% organics in residual waste, which is only 10% of the starting amount of municipal solid waste, it means that only 1% of the starting amount of municipal solid waste is food waste which was not captured through separate collection. I know what crosses your mind. You say, in Italy, food is good, so they don't waste anything. And I noticed you always use spaghetti in your examples. I noticed. I'm really hungry by now, really hungry. But believe me, that's a district where we started with 45% organics. So the system is incredibly effective. In order to do that, you need to make the system user-friendly, comfortable. We use the vented kitchen caddies because from one collection round to the next one, we are able to lose up to 20% of the water, the moisture inside food waste, which is evaporated. So it's smart also from the economic standpoint because you will deliver a lower tonnage to the composting site. So you save money. And biodegradable compostable bags to make the system user-friendly. I noticed, and I agree to the point which was made by the Swiss gentleman today. We have got a problem with GMOs, but GMOs are coming into European economics anyway. Don't put the blame on the biobags. Anyway, from the standpoint of optimization of separate collection and of composting, the only thing that matters is they have to be compostable. And there is an European standard for compostability, which is EN 13432. As long as you use those ones, you will have a user-friendly system, you maximize the captures, you minimize the percentage of organics and residual waste, and you have got an overall optimization of the system. Can we do intensive collection of food waste at high rises? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we started as early as 1985 in the metropolitan area of Milan, not in Milan City then, but we were already collecting, yeah, that's glass on the left-hand side, and the food waste, the brown bin, with the open lorries. As long as you collect food waste without commingling it with the garden waste, it's not bulky, so you don't need an expensive compactor. You may use a small open lorry. And Milan started, Milan has just been the host city for the Expo, the international exhibition, under the leading title, Feed the Planet. And we were telling the mayor, how can we feed the planet if we don't separate food waste? We are feeding the landfill, not the planet. So that sounded convincing. They started in, well, we started because I was in the design team for the system. November 2012, June 2013, December 2013, and the last quarter was in June 2014. So in as little as 1.5 years, so it cannot be done overnight, but it doesn't take ages either, 350,000 people at a time were covered with separate collection of food waste. And now it covers 100% of the population. What are the results? Yeah, this is in social houses in the outskirts. We had to translate the instructions into 9 different languages. Then it was politically sensitive because there was the Tamil community. They told us, hey, you translated into Indian and you did not consider Tamil. So we had to translate into Tamil as well, and now we have got 10 different languages. Slovenian should be there, I think so, might be. Yeah, no yak because we use the biobags. Try to consider the common wheelie bin for a high rise if you have to deliver your food waste alongside the food waste of all the other households. That would cause the yak. You know what the yak is. Thanks to the translators, they have to translate the yak. A nuisance. But with the biobags, it's comfortable. And you maximize the captures. Results, diversion of food scraps, it's 95 kilograms per inhabitant and year in Milan City, plain food waste, without considering garden waste inside. It's 130,000 tons a year. I remember the planned incinerator for Ljubljana was around 150,000 tons, so it's one incinerator less. Purity of food waste, 2.7 on the average, so it's more than satisfactory. You can compost it through a simplified composting process. And the support, customer satisfaction, people are supportive. Those ones who are happy, they will not tell you. Those ones who are not happy, they will shout out and they will say, no, it's not working. But that's a distorting effect. As soon as you run a customer satisfaction analysis, the first one we did in 2013 told us 79% of the customers, they were satisfied, and it grew to 95% at the last one. So by far the majority is supportive. And the last bit is New York City. When we talk about the densely populated city center, one of the worldly capitals. This is Haley Rogers. She's a friend of mine. She used to be the supervisor of the organics separate collection program in New York City. They are already covering 200,000 people in Brooklyn, but now they want to go biting the biggest skyscrapers in Manhattan. And you know the lyrics from the song by Liza Minnelli. If you can make it there, you'd make it anywhere. So we can make it anywhere, but putting the icing on the cake, in Treviso, what happens when you introduce intensive, aggressive curbside systems, including the organics? Thanks to optimization, you look at the low end of the slide, you save money, they are saving money, not spending more, but above all, they are creating jobs. So we are shifting the cost load from the cost of using the environment or the cost of using capitals, landfills, incinerators, into giving a wage to new jobs, and that's the most important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was great introduction. We were not only in Milan, so I apologize for announcing it like that, but we like the case studies, you know, and this is very good case study what you did. So my first question would be, we are very good, you mentioned that Slovenians, we are collecting, what is your data actually, which you are exposing? That we are 100%?
It's 100% of the households in Ljubljana already covered with a separate collection of the organics.
Oh, yeah,
So
we're
actually,
covered.
Milan and Ljubljana are the largest formal schemes for separate collection of food waste in Europe. There's, of course, a separate collection of food waste in other big cities, but they are covering only a smaller percentage. I happen to understand that in Rotterdam, for instance, they are enlarging the scheme 20,000 people a year. So might be by 2075 they will be finished.
Yeah.
But they have got overcapacity of
Yeah, yeah,
incineration, and
yeah.
that's the problem as usual.
But the problem that comes further on is one is collecting, the other one is composting.
Yeah.
And in Milan, you managed to do that. So how many points you have where you?
No, for the moment, Milan City, they don't own a treatment site for the organics.
Okay.
So they are shipping all the food waste and garden waste to a very big anaerobic digestion site, which is it's one of the biggest in the world. It's totaling a capacity of 300,000 tons a year. But of course, as a matter of strategic independence, and this is also an issue for Ljubljana, they want to plan and build their own facility. Probably they will make two, one north of Milan, one south of Milan. The numbers are there to justify more than one site.
Yeah, because we have built two, as far as I know, in Slovenia, in Vrhnika. And
Yeah.
we have some problems because they do not smell very nice. But it is another question. How
I can keep you in this room about odor management for a couple of weeks, but it's not the issue of the day today. It's more a threat than a pledge of mine.
But
you know.
because I think it's the right direction, but we should have the right knowledge
No,
to do
facilities, they have to be fitted with all the
Yeah.
environmental management systems.
Yeah.
But at the level of best available
Yeah.
techniques, you can easily sort out any problem with odor
Yeah,
management.
therefore. So
Yeah.
we should be optimistic and
sure,
go further
sure.
on in this direction.
Be confident.
So, yeah. Questions? Vprašanja?
They look convinced already.
Yeah, you convinced them completely. So, and we are so good
Wonderful.
because you promoted Ljubljana, the most beautiful city in the world.
If you haven't visited Ljubljana yet, please do.
Okay, then thank you. The questions will come later, I'm sure.
Voilà.
And then we have. Last not least, Claudia, please. Now the secrets come on our menu. So what can we do with this waste that we collect? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. And I'm at the end of this history, and I'm very happy to be at the end of history for many reasons. Benefits of compost use in agriculture. We have a lot of wastes, and then we produce one kind of fertilizer, compost. When we applied the circular economy for many centuries, we closed the no, doesn't work. Okay. Now yes. Okay. We have soil. We produce plants. Plants feed humans, animals, and the end of this history, we can produce. Okay, now it's correct. We can produce manures, and manures feed the soil, as Enzo told before. This is in a normal, sustainable agriculture. In the last decades, in so-called modern societies, we produce a lot of wastes. These wastes cannot be used for soil fertilization, and this circular economy was stopped. This is the focal point in so-called modern societies. What are our goals? Our goal is to restore the previous cycle and to produce materials fertilizers that can be used for soil fertilization, for plant fertilization via soil. Okay? Okay, what's compost? Compost is high organic material, organic carbon material, rich in humic substances, humus, containing slow-release nitrogen and other micro and macronutrients. So it's a perfect fertilizer. The agronomical use of compost is not a news. We have a lot of books, a lot of scientific papers, technical papers, showing that compost is a very good fertilizer. So, and the reason of this, the good product is, as I told before, due to their organic nitrogen and nutrients. I show you now just a case study of this on this matter, made in Italy in our agricultural faculty, comparing the effect of mineral to the organic fertilization, not in annual trees, but in orchard tree. And the goal was to evaluate during 14 years the effect of organic versus mineral fertilization on soil carbon sequestration, on soil fertility, and on tree response. This is the material used for this compost, but anyway, my message is on compost without any specification of which materials, raw material has been used in this preparation. This is the compost used. The tree was peach, a typical orchard tree in Emilia-Romagna region. This is the rate of nitrogen application of this compost, because nitrogen is the element to be followed, because they can produce different effects. It's good, but if you have a lot of nitrogen in this aspect, on this fertilization, we have a lot of problems. This is the experimental farm in autumn season, and then we pick up the plants in order to give our studies. Okay, some results. We can see that the compost material produced different amount of dry matter on root, skeleton, leaf. Total is, see here, and this means that compost is able to give a good result in production in terms of carbon storage. In terms of organic carbon stored in the soil, this is the depth, we have these results. This means that compost is able to make carbon storage in soil, and this is due to the accumulation of humic substances. In terms of carbon storage, we have different results in row and inter-row of the peach trees, And in particular, we have an increase of total organic carbon in the row, along the row where the compost were used. In terms of carbon sequestration, the data are very clear. We have a huge difference among the compost carbon sequestration instead of versus mineral one. Exactly, we have in soil where in comparison with the soil reference, we have plus 60 tons per hectare and 55 tons per hectare of delta carbon in soil. And in general, we have 200 tons per hectare in these 14 years of the experiment. About the cumulative yield, also in terms of yield, we have difference, statistical difference, significant difference on this experiment, and the compost gave better results. Also, in terms of quality of pitch, we have difference among mineral and compost, or in general, the results were comparable. Which conclusions? But in my opinion, the conclusions are very easy. In my opinion. Okay. Continuous compost application lead to a compost sequestration in both tree and soil. Most of the compost applied was found in the soil and must be considered in low degradable. Soil fertility increased because in general when a soil stock carbon, its soil fertility increased. The microbial biomass, here the results are not reported, but believe me, the microbial biomass increased in terms of quantity and in terms of biodiversity. And the tree response is similar to the mineral one. I conclude reporting that recently I read this article in which the author suggests to stock, to pick up different trees, grasses, and to make a compost. And he specified that, he specified that he understands that there is a countryside without animals, but he suggests to make compost with some organic materials. And this author was Columella, and this was wrote 2,000 years ago, in the 1st century, during the Roman Empire. Nothing news. I thank all of you. This is my team in Bologna and the other colleagues of the plant of the tree, area of my department. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So thank you very much for sharing this with us. But did I get it right that our grandparents were much more in circular economy than we are today? So
of sure.
So we are coming back to our roots by
Yeah, we have lost completely the
compass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our politics in particular, and
Because,
not only the decision makers, but
That's on the way we've got lost, but
Yeah.
we will come back. So what you expose here is that actually composting is a piece of art. It's not something very easy. And it's important how you do that. And so what would your advice be? Let's say on one level for the households, because we were talking before about this collecting organic waste and so on, but composting is another story. So where is the secret, to say so?
Oh, the secret. I'm not a chef, but anyway, compost is the results of the composting process. Composting process can be made using with different kind of materials. There isn't any materials that can be composted. So, compost, when in the past our grandparents made farmyard manure, cow manure is a typical compost product, combining aerobic and anaerobic digestion. Okay, it's necessary many months to produce a good product. Okay, but all materials can be composted. Anyway, I add that it's important to verify the quality of raw materials in terms of pollutants, inorganic and organic pollutants. I hope that in the next future, also in the European legislation, compost should be included. And I can say that probably at the end of this year or in 2016, we can read that compost is one of the organic fertilizer included in 2003 legislation at European level, because up to date, no organic materials are included in that regulation.
If I can make a very brief remark, I listened to the presentation with utmost interest because since we are often engaged at the European level in policy making and decision making concerning different waste management strategies, you know that in the Waste Framework Directive, in the foreword, they say that waste policy should be supported by life cycle analysis. The problem when it comes to organics is that when it comes to the agronomic use of organics, they only consider the nutrient replacement, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, which is only a marginal part of the value of compost. And they always forget about organic matter. And this was very well highlighted in the presentation because it was showing evidence that we are sequestering carbon. You know, we are providing subsidies to incineration because we say we can replace fossil fuels and therefore we have got a gain in terms of greenhouse gases. But if we sequester carbon in our European soils, in the total carbon balance, we will have much more carbon in soils to produce fertility and much less nasty carbon in the atmosphere to produce climate change. And that's incredibly important in this respect to have such long-term trials for the use of compost on soils.
Thank you very much for these questions. Vprašanja, kakšna? Aha.
No, še enkrat je Codarič. Jaz bi vas, gospod profesor, vprašal, jaz sem se letos na pomlad srečal z bioogljem. To je zadeva, ki nastane na podlagi pirolize, surovina.
Sorry.
Ja, no, rekel sem, da sem še enkrat oglašam. Jaz sem v bistvu letos, ker sem tudi mali vinogradnik, mali sadjar in tudi mali vrtnar, sem začel uporabljati biooglje. Če ste se že kdaj srečali s to zadevo, to se pač pridobiva za pirolizo, ki trenutno je tovarna v Avstriji in jo distributerji pripeljejo v Slovenijo. Skratka, zadeva je na trgu, jaz jo uporabljam, ki je pa tudi velik, bistveno večji zadrževalec ogljika. Pa jaz sem že to na parih koncih govoril, povedal, ampak ljudje tega ne razumejo, čeprav je to deklarirano, napisano, zapisano. Skratka, no, vaše mnenje, če morda ste se že srečali v praksi oziroma v teoriji z bioogljem. Hvala.
Okay, thank you for your question. It's a very actual question, and there is within the field of research and application, there is a very strong debate on this one, on this kind of material. Charcoal is recommended as a kind of fertilizer, okay, and this is supported by the terra preta. This is a particular situation in South America, and many people support this product. So, in my opinion, I repeat, in my opinion, charcoal can be used for soil fertilization, but I don't support that this product can make miracles. Okay. There is a question about the formation of many kind of type of organic pollutants like hydrocarbons in this product. In our legislation, has been introduced in this year, and so I think that it could be used, but the product doesn't contain any kind of nitrogen, sulfur, and is only constituted by organic carbon. Okay, it's a typical charcoal that we use when we grill meat, yes. Barbecue, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so please, another question? Yeah.
Actually, the last 3 years, approximately, I was dealing with personal habits, like how to change personal habits, shopping habits, and these kind of problems. So my question is, it is possible to make compost in an apartment, not in a house outside, but living in the middle of the city and make, like, I researched a little bit, and all the solutions were like half solutions. Like you can make something, but at the end you have to buy an additives to make the compost, and you have something to throw away at the end. So you get just the liquid to put on your plants, but it is a possibility to make, like, you have some advices how to make it maybe at home or like in the apartment?
There are some programs on that in Italy. Okay, it's possible to produce compost, but in an apartment, I think that where? Okay, I suppose that there are some problem of smell, or in any case, if you are able to make a compost in a proper way without any damage for other people, okay. But I don't know if Enzo has equipment.
No, I will give you the details in bilateral contacts. But anyway, in quite a few cities around Italy, we are promoting composting on the balcony. It's tough. It's tough. But once you're passionate and committed, yeah, once you're passionate and committed, you know, passion and commitment overcome any tough task. In the end of the story, you have to consider Zurich, which is the biggest city in Switzerland. They are doing composting with no centralized industrial composting facility. They have got 600 decentralized neighborhood composting systems. So it's a different model. According to the European directives, that would be a little bit difficult, because as soon as you transfer the ownership of your discards, of your waste, to somebody who has to manage them in the European Union, you need a permit. Switzerland is not in the European Union, and they're lucky in this respect.
Thank you. Maybe there will be a solution made by Dalibor and his company, because I think that the trends are going now this way, because we are having home gardening, these urban gardens, everything. So we are trying to produce food at home in flats, actually, and composting goes well together with that. So disruptive models are on the way. So I would open the discussion, yes, for all the participants. So you're welcome to address the question to any of them.
Mogoče sam komentar. Pravilno kompostiranje, pravilna tehnika kompostiranja dejansko je skoraj brez vonja. Če čist najbolj ekstremni primer povem, v Združenih državah Amerike kompostirajo cela trupla poginulih živali, jih kompostirajo, jih ne dajo v moko in sežigajo te moke in tako naprej. Sicer to uporabljajo za obgradnje cest, ta kompost ne, ker je določen problem z antraksom in tako naprej. Vendar, sem kot primer, da se z dobro tehnologijo se da vse narediti. Moj komentar oziroma za razpravo pa mogoče glede samega pepela, ki nastane od biomase, govorimo o čisti biomasi iz gozda in ostankov od žag. To je problem, da se to smatra kot odpadek, kar je dejansko gnojilo. Možno je seveda tudi uporabljala v gradbeništvu in pri gradnji cest, kar se trenutno že ponekod malo dogaja, ampak rad bi kakšne komentarje oziroma kakšne uvide, če ima kdo na tem področju.
Whoever has the answer.
I start. Okay. I believe that organic carbon, the cycle of organic carbon starts from the soil and must end into the soil. This is an ecologist concept, but is the guide of our Earth. Okay, the photosynthesis, okay, start from some nutrients from the soil and end to the soil. We have to avoid any CO2 emission by combustion of such organic materials. We have to avoid any conversion of organic nitrogen into NOx or N2, because we spend a lot of money to convert N2 nitrogen from the atmosphere to the ammonia. We have to avoid to lose sulfur, and we have to give all technologies to recover phosphorus and other nutrients. Okay, this is our goal. So I am convinced and I am sure that the technologies are available, but we need that the decision makers are convinced and they change some guidelines or some legislative aspects. This morning, one colleague said that byproducts or raw materials is classified as wastes, okay? And so this is a matter of solid organic material, but also for sewage treatment plants, for the sewers, where waters are discharged to the rivers, to the sea, completely losing the nutrients. So my opinion is clear. For my category of agricultural chemist, the soil must be fed with wastes, not with other things. Urea is perfect. It's only urea. No contaminants are inside. But it's not the best field for nitrogen, for soil, neither for plants, urea. This is the concept. The contamination is a natural situation. It's not we have different approaches. And I hope that in the future this initiative should be encouraged and supported.
You wanted to add something? No? Okay, please. Now the floor is yours. So, kakšna vprašanja? Zdaj imamo čas za diskusijo, še pol ure se lahko pogovarjamo in mogoče še tam v zadnji, da se še kdo pogumi kje. Za kakšno vprašanje? Prav nič, kaj? No.
Hi. Compost, I'm complete analphabet about it, but I come from the region where some revitalization processes are going around, so in post-industrial area, and there's been said that the compost is being used to cover the surface, which stinks a lot, it disturbs the inhabitants and so. And some of the environmentalists were saying, yeah, well, but what is that compost? You know, so if you don't know how to call it or what is in there, call it compost and everything is okay. So are there threats of using compost as well, and what actually, yeah, can be bad?
Okay, thanks for this question. Okay, I know this problem. So, compost is one of the fertilizers. We have plenty of kind of fertilizers. Okay, when compost is regularly inserted in a regulation like our regulation in Italy, in French, in Spanish, in Germany, in in Switzerland, I don't know. Okay, when a product is regularly registered, this product is safety for consumer, for farmers, for plants, for environment, and so on. We have the same approach like for food, for feed, for drugs, and so on. This is the point of, okay? Depends on the amount that each farmer apply, okay? But any farmers use compost without convenience. the application depends on the label, which amount of nitrogen, for instance, you have in a compost. If you have 1% of nitrogen when you decide to feed corn, for instance, you can apply at maximum 20 tons per hectare, not more. The agronomist is like the medicine, the doctor. The doctor use some products and decide the posology, okay? The same. There are many discussions that are without a solid base. We discuss because is our sensation, but anything in agriculture is made without scientific support. I don't know if my answer is...
If you are detecting problems with the smells, bad smells coming from compost, very likely it's a very fresh compost which is not perfectly matured. And in that respect, that's the nuisance. The nuisance is only something which is disturbing, even though we would like to get rid of that. From the ecological standpoint, a fresh compost, above all when it's applied at a very high loads, in terms of tons per hectare, it may release too much nitrogen into the groundwater or by runoff into the surface water. So that might be worth monitoring. In my opinion, that's my background as well. I come from the composting side. I'm an agronomist, and you may have noticed I come from an agricultural research and technical development center. Then there was nobody doing separate collection of the organics. This is why we took one step back in order to convince the local decision makers to do separate collection of the organics. And this is why we got involved in zero waste programs. However, the most important would be to define a maturity index for your compost and to make it fit for purpose. This is what is going on. For instance, in Germany, they have got 4 different degrees of maturation, and each degree of maturation defines the better purpose for the use of the specific compost you may use.
Thank you. Jaz bi sam še en tak krožni povzetek naredila tega, skozi kaj smo se sprehodili, da mogoče razmislite še, kakšna je še priložnost za koga kaj vprašati. Začeli smo z tem, kaj se lahko naredi na področju samega tega tokokroga hrane, se pravi od tega, kaj naredimo v gospodinjstvih, kaj naredimo lahko v odnosu s trgovci, kaj potem pri razporejanju hrane. Potem smo se premaknili do tega, kakšne aplikacije oziroma kakšni sistemi so možni za to, da najdemo tiste, ki jih je treba povezati, da je te odpadne ali pa zavržene hrane čim manj. Potem smo imeli primer tega, kako deluje zero waste koncept v praksi in kako določena mesta že implementirajo to, da organske odpadke dejansko zagotovijo 100% možnost zbiranja in kaj se potem lahko zgodi. In zdaj na koncu smo prišli do kompostiranja in do tega, kaj je tukaj lahko. Tako da v tem celem lupu, tako imenovanem, če je še karkoli, kar vas zanima ali pa kar je mogoče izziv, posebej za Slovenijo, ker kot smo rekli, mi vstopamo zdaj v ambicijo, da postanemo referenčna zelena država v digitalni Evropi in ta del zelenega lahko samo vsi skupaj soustvarimo. Vsak na svojem področju, vsak z določenimi aktivnostmi in seveda v povezovanju. Tako da lahko predstavite tudi kakšno svojo dobro prakso, kakšen izziv, kakšen problem, tako da izkoristimo ta čas.
I have a question for Enzo. I wanted to know, how did you deal with, you have some zero waste shops in Italy, in Toscana, I know, and maybe somewhere else. I want to know how did you deal with the laws in the country, like because of the packagings and the food safety and this kind of criteria that they were made years ago.
Since you were mentioning Tuscany, you were probably making reference to FECORTA. FECORTA was established in Capannori, which was the first municipality in Italy and Europe to adopt a zero-waste program as early as 2007. And ever since, it has been one of the reference zero-waste programs to diffuse the strategy around Europe. And since it is the operational context which produces also the entrepreneurial initiative, then we had the first initiative on packaging-free shops there, namely FECORTA. But ever since, they have been diffusing other shops in Milan, in Ravenna. Now also in Germany, in France, there are different initiatives in this respect. In Germany, there is Original Unverpackt, which means the shop without any packaging. It's not a matter of laws, because it's a free choice of the shop. It's a matter of how you could provide for incentives in that respect. And of course, that very much refers to the sensitivity and the culture of the people. They get more sensitive on reducing packaging because they live in a zero-waste community. But also, in Capannori, the incentive comes from the fact that Capannori has a pay-as-you-throw system. So you pay for your waste not as a property tax, but in terms of how much residual waste you are producing for disposal. And therefore, if you are running a packaging-free shop, you will produce much less waste, and this saves your money. And
Še kakšno vprašanje, komentar, še od koga? Ne? Okay, there are no more questions, but I would like to conclude that, because it is a great opportunity that we deliver the message also to the roundtable that is going to take place after that. So I would kindly ask each of you to share, let's say, a wish for a goldfish. You said you are never satisfied, but we are all happy at the moment. So what would be that one thing that you would like to fulfill or to accomplish, and where we can maybe cooperate? So,
ladies first. Huh?
Ladies. I was going to get some time.
It's a matter of kindness, you know. No, I've got my own statement ready.
What am I going to say? I just think, yes, I think certainly for us in the UK, we maybe have perhaps been quite insular to some extent, looking at solutions within a UK context. But I think in terms of our learning and in terms of coming to these events, then there's lots of opportunities to work, pan-Europe on some of these issues. And, we just must make the best of all these opportunities, really.
Okay, so we will keep in contact, and whoever is interested in cooperation, collaboration is welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
No. Then the youngest?
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Jaz bom tako, se pravi, nekako želimo zdaj razvijati v tej smeri s tehnologijo, da nekako napolnimo oziroma vsa ta področja zapolnimo za neko inovacijo. S tem želimo sočasno kreirati nova partnerstva, nove podpornike. Država tudi stopi k nam, zdaj odlično sodelujemo z državo, moram to povedati. Tako da in tudi ne samo v Sloveniji, ampak tudi v drugih državah Evropske unije, da zapolnimo ta celoten tok okrog vseh teh iniciativ, vseh teh podjetij, vseh teh nekako družbenikov v tem toku krogu, da postanemo nekako zedinjeni. Mislim, da manjka trenutno na trgu nekako ta partnerstva, ta moč, ki bi lahko skupaj praktično nekaj naredimo. In mislim, da v tem je rešitev, in tudi to je moja želja, da nekako se povežemo skupaj kot eno enoto in nastopimo skupno proti tem završkom, ki nastanejo, in mislim, da kot skupno ta moč ogromna lahko nekaj storimo. Tako da to je.
Hvala. Who's next?
Okay, I think first and foremost, food waste prevention should come. But this was perfectly covered by the other speakers. When it comes to separate collection of food waste, I think we badly need some regulatory drivers at European level. what triggered the interest in separate collection of food waste was the fact that in Germany, since 1982, they started separate collection programs, but it was not made mandatory until January the 1st of 2015. And this is why they still don't have it in most of the city centers in Germany. In 1985, it was made mandatory in the Netherlands. In Austria, they have got an even stricter regulation because the mandate is on each single household, so each single household has to do separate collection or show evidence that they are doing home composting. So this makes the system even more pressing and effective. In Italy, we started as early as 1993, but we still know there is an unexpressed potential for composting and anaerobic digestion and separate collection of food waste in most of Central Eastern Europe. And in this respect, we badly need some regulatory drivers. You know probably that currently in the Waste Framework Directive, Article 22 covers biowaste, but it has got a very weak wording. It says, member states should encourage separate collection if appropriate, which means that everybody may argue it's not appropriate to my situation, you know. So while bottom up, you know, I share your views, bottom up we are showing evidence that it's feasible, it's viable, it's cost competitive, it's convenient, it produces jobs and so on and so forth. We need to convince the policymakers, and therefore we badly need Article 22 to be changed into member states shall establish separate collection schemes for biowaste. Then, that's the general principle, because if we say there is an obligation for separate collection, but an obligation may be complied with very poor performing schemes. I just put a wheelie bin in the main square in the city, and I tell all the households, who wants to do separate collection goes there. I'm fulfilling the obligation. We need also some result-oriented targets. So it might be, as the Swedish way, at least 25% and then 50% and then 75% of food waste has to be separately collected by 2020, 2025, 2030 and something like that. This also ensures the bankability of initiatives, because anybody who wants to ask for a loan from the bank will ask him, how can you ensure that somebody will deliver here the food waste to be processed? Hey, look, there is a regulatory obligation that 25% of the biowaste shall be separated by 2020, which makes X or Y thousands tons, and therefore I'm providing a service in this respect. So that's incredibly needed, otherwise we will have, as usual, a two-speed Europe, and we can't afford it. We can't afford it.
As an end user, I support these suggestions, and we are able to make good fertilizer using different raw materials, byproducts like digestates, even charcoal. If necessary, we introduce other limit for heavy metals, aromatic hydrocarbons, dioxins, and so on. So when a fertilizer is put in the market, is safety, is saved. For, I repeat, because in Article 1 of the Regulation 2003, EU regulation, it's clear any kind of fertilizer must be, must conserve, must soil, human, animal, and water. This is a must. Is in that article is clearly written.
Thank you very much for your participation, for the insights, and I have a suggestion because we have a very nice sunny day outside, so we can use these 10 minutes to let our brain circulate and our knowledge as well. So you are invited to go outside to use our guests and to talk to them and to grab some more information. And
First, let's give a hand to the workshop
Yes.
facilitator because she did incredibly well. Well done.
thank you very much. Hvala in nadaljujemo potem ob 3:15. Hvala lepa.